In 1961, several bizarre studies emerged, aiming to analyze hyperactive children and ultimately uncover the origins of childhood aggression. Among them was perhaps the most famous and infamous experiment ever conducted, known as the Bobo Doll Experiment. In this experiment, children witnessed adults violently attacking a life-sized doll. Scientists uncovered a chilling truth that made many parents' hearts skip a beat. What exactly did they discover? Let's find out. BDE, or the Bobo Doll Experiment, was an infamous and ethically controversial psychological study conducted by psychologist Albert Bandura at Stanford University in 1961 involving young children. Its aim was to investigate aggressive behavior in children, specifically their tendency to imitate adult behaviors. Between 1961 and 1963, Canadian psychologist Albert Bandura carried out experiments to observe children's reactions after witnessing adults behave violently towards a doll. In fact, the Bobo Doll Experiment provided empirical proof for one of Bandura's most renowned theories, social learning theory. This theory suggests that a significant part of human learning occurs through interactions within the social environment. By observing others, individuals acquire knowledge, skills, strategies, beliefs, and attitudes. For the infamous Bobo Doll Experiment, psychologist Albert Bandura selected 36 boys and 36 girls, aged between 3 and 6 years old, dividing them into 3 distinct groups: one exposed to violent models, one exposed to non-violent models, and a control group that wasn't exposed to any model. Each of these groups was further subdivided by gender, resulting in smaller groups of boys and girls. Bandura hypothesized that children who observed non-violent adults would display less aggression. He also theorized that children were more likely to imitate adults of the same gender, with boys generally demonstrating more aggressive tendencies than girls. Each child was taken individually into a series of 3 rooms at Stanford University. The first room contained many toys, including a clown-faced Bobo doll about 1 meter tall. After a few minutes, an adult entered the room. For the group exposed to violent models, the adult aggressively attacked the Bobo doll, punching, kicking, knocking it down, scratching its face, and shouting phrases like "hit him, kick him, and punch him in the face." Meanwhile, the adult model in the non-violent group simply ignored the Bobo doll entirely. Next, each child was led into a second room filled with attractive toys. However, just after they began playing, the researchers deliberately interrupted, informing the child that these toys were reserved for other kids. The goal here was to intentionally provoke feelings of frustration and anger in each child. Finally, the children were brought into the third and final experimental room, which contained several deliberately aggressive toys, including a toy hammer, a dart gun, a ball with a drawn-on face, and another Bobo doll. The room also contained several non-aggressive toys, including crayons, paper, dolls, plastic animals. Each child was allowed to play in this room for 20 minutes, while experimenters quietly observed their behavior from behind a one-way mirror, assessing levels of aggression. The results showed that children behaved differently towards the toys upon entering the room. Some children immediately began displaying aggressive behaviors toward the doll. It can be said that the results of this experiment fundamentally changed the course of psychology, as the Bobo Doll Experiment was a groundbreaking study in understanding childhood aggression. The foundation of this experiment was to prove that certain behaviors are learned by children through imitating the actions of adult role models. In parenting, we often encounter children displaying seemingly unusual behaviors without knowing why. Why are some children quiet while others are outgoing? Why are some gentle while others are irritable? Why do children behave so differently? The findings from the Bobo Doll Experiment have, to some extent, provided answers to these long-standing questions for parents and psychologists alike. As expected, the study's results closely aligned with Bandura's predictions. Specifically, children who witnessed adults acting violently toward the Bobo doll were more likely to imitate this behavior when left unsupervised. In contrast, children who were not exposed to aggressive role models remained calm. According to Bandura, when adults punched and kicked the Bobo doll, children perceived this behavior as socially acceptable. However, there was a significant gender difference. Boys who observed a male adult displaying aggression were more influenced than those who watched a female adult exhibiting the same violent behavior. This suggests that boys tend to imitate physical aggression, while girls are more likely to replicate verbal aggression. Additionally, The researchers were correct in predicting that boys would display higher levels of aggression. Ultimately, this experiment led scientists to a key conclusion. Specific behaviors can be learned through observation and imitation. In the long run, children exposed to aggression were more likely to respond to frustration with violent behavior. This is also why the experiment later became highly controversial. Some critics argued that the study was unethical. By deliberately influencing children to act aggressively, the researchers were, in essence, teaching them to be violent, potentially shaping their future behavior. Meanwhile, other experts questioned whether the laboratory results truly reflected real-life situations. They pointed out that the aggressive behavior was observed immediately after exposure, making it unclear whether these effects were long-lasting. Additionally, children might not have attacked the Bobo doll out of natural aggression, but rather as a way to please the adults, especially after being encouraged with phrases like, "hit it, kick it, knock it down." Nevertheless, the Bobo Doll Experiment remains one of the most famous psychological studies to this day and is still included in many academic curricula. The original Bobo doll used in the experiment is now preserved at the National Museum of Psychology in Akron, Ohio. In the decades following the experiment, hundreds of studies have been conducted to explore how exposure to violence affects children's behavior. While some of these studies have faced backlash due to ethical concerns about their impact on young participants, experts continue to advise parents to limit children's exposure to violent imagery, as it can have lasting psychological effects and contribute to the development of aggressive behaviors. According to experts, exposure to violent imagery can come from media or even the daily behavior of parents. To avoid becoming a model of aggression for children, adults should practice nonviolent, positive behaviors, such as using respectful communication to resolve conflicts rather than resorting to hostility. On the other hand, in 1965, a similar experiment to the Bobo doll study was conducted to examine the effects of reward and punishment on violent behavior. The findings reinforced the principles of observational learning. When adults were rewarded for their aggression, children were more likely to continue hitting the Bobo doll. However, when adults were reprimanded, children also stopped their aggressive behavior.